Okay, it is 6:45 on the nose. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump right in to go over the important information from chapters 6 and 7, and then I'm going to talk about the midterm, the last day to turn in assignments, and the midterm survey. But for chapters 6 and 7, these will be on the midterm. So you definitely want to do your chapter 6, 7 quiz before the midterm. So anybody watching, if you are still in week 1 or 2, you definitely want to go through those weeks before you take the midterm, because the midterm is going to have questions from the previous quiz chapters. So don't jump straight in to take the midterm because you kind of think, oh, this is what's going to save my grade. If you haven't taken the quizzes up to the midterm, you probably won't do that well on the midterm. So if you're behind, don't freak out by trying to take the midterm. Just get through as many of the quizzes as you can and then take the midterm. So chapters 6 and 7, I sent that study guide. It should be in your chat box. There's not a lot of information that's going to be on the quiz from chapter 6 and 7. So I'm just going to kind of zero in and focus on exactly what it is that you want to utilize. Okay, so in the beginning of chapter 6, there's going to be a table that talks about the motor development during early childhood. All right, so that is all right. So in the book, in the second edition, it's going to look something like this, and it is on page 151. So you definitely want to be familiar with the descriptors as it pertains to the motor development during early childhood. And you also want to be able to, if you have to order them in terms of, okay, well, what are some of the milestones, and you may have to put something in order, but you just definitely want to be very comfortable with this particular table. Next, the cognitive development. Okay, now the cognitive development section is going to be very important as you kind of shift your focus to start thinking about our next assignment, which is going to be the childhood. So when you're writing your childhood lesson plan, the 2 chapters that you want to focus on is actually the one chapter that, no, the two. The 2 chapters that you want to focus on are going to be chapter 6 and chapter 7. Again, on your upcoming assignment for the childhood lesson plan, you want to focus on chapter 6 and chapter 7. And particularly, you want to focus on the cognitive development section in chapter 6. The reason why is because you want to understand what will be developmentally appropriate for a child at that particular level. So you want to be thinking about what will be an appropriate lesson plan if a child is between the ages of 6 to 12. And the best way, or the best way to kind of get an understanding of that, is focusing on the cognitive development sections within these chapters. Largely, they're going to focus on the work of Piaget, but they're also going to include important theories from other scientists that just talk about what are some things that the child brain is ready to learn at this stage. So again, when we think about developmentally appropriate, it should be in terms of the question, what is the child brain ready to learn at this stage? If you're writing a lesson plan meant for a child, that means I shouldn't see a whole lot of things that I would expect to see at maybe the high school level or the middle school level. If you need assistance with this piece, I'm telling you now, chapter 6, and you want to focus on the section that says cognitive development. Now, in the second edition, that starts on page 153. But whatever edition that you have, that's fine. Just beeline it to where they're talking about cognitive development, because that is the section that will let you know what are some developmentally appropriate activities that you could do in the classroom. The next piece, they're going to talk about play and learning. Now, this is still within the section of cognitive development, but it's going to talk specifically about when we're looking at children, what should be the balance of play and learn, because at that stage, the way that they learn is through constructive play. So you definitely want to look at this in the chapter, but then I've also included some additional resources in your student materials in Canvas, and we'll kind of go over, or we'll go through those videos in a little bit. Next, you want to go important concepts. How are they defined? What does it look like in children when educating? Okay, so these two things, they're the zone of proximal development. So that's going to be when we're talking about Vygotsky, he's considered one of the first, and when we think about it in Western Europe, he's considered one of the first people to really think about this concept of scaffolding and this idea that you have to meet people where they are and then build gaps to where you want them to go. And scaffolding is a huge concept within education. It's pretty much considered one of the foundations of how we teach. And it's considered also a foundation when you think about differentiated instruction, and when you think about making sure that you don't use a one size fits all. I am losing a lot of people, and I'm not sure why. But all I know is, please don't email me with all of the questions, because I'm going to cover it all. But I'm going to push forward with the people that I do have. So like I was saying, scaffolding is a very important concept. If you do plan to go into the classroom, this is a section of the chapter that you definitely want to slow down. You want to highlight some things. You may want to bunny ear the page, because this is a phrase that you're going to hear throughout your career. Scaffolding, scaffolding, scaffolding. What does that mean? Next, it talks about the language development, specifically with bilingualism. So you kind of want to be well-versed in understanding how do students or children develop language, and then what does that development look like in the brain of a bilingual student, so a student that speaks two languages. You want to be well-versed in that. And they're going to talk about this concept of the different types of language, which, let me find it specifically. Is receptive and okay. I can't find the specific page that I'm thinking of, but hold on, let me look it up. Okay. I'm going to move on. Once I find it, I'll probably email everyone out. But I know it's receptive, and then there's another term that they focus on in the chapter that I really like for students to think about when it comes to language development, but specifically bilingual. And they talk about bilingual. That is on page 164 when it gets into the multicultural aspects of language development. So that's a very important section of the chapter that I definitely want us to focus on, only because, living in Texas in specific, if you plan to work in the greater metroplex, even if you are not going to be a bilingual teacher, pretty much everyone is an ESL teacher, because we have a lot of second language learners, not just with Spanish either. We have a growing population of students who speak Arabic. We have a growing population of students who speak Vietnamese. So you just kind of want to be understanding of what it's like in the bilingual student's brain. And then in chapter 7, and so that's pretty much what I want you to focus on chapter 6. It's a long chapter, but the information that you're going to be responsible for is very specific. So definitely use the study guide so you can get an understanding of what specific things I want you to glean from chapter 6. And then as it pertains to chapter 7, when it comes to personality and sociocultural development, there's 2 things. We're going to focus on coping with feelings and emotions, and then we're going to focus on aggression and pro-social behavior. So when we're thinking about coping with feelings and emotions, that's talking about fear and anxiety, and how does that play out in a child? The reason why I felt like this was something important for us to think about is because when we think about children, and specifically when we think about when children misbehave, a lot of times we as adults think that the children are misbehaving because, they're just trying to be evil, or they just trying to, make it so that we have a terrible day. And usually that is not the case. If a child is misbehaving, it's because that's the only way they know how to get out what they're feeling. So they may not have the emotional intelligence or the emotional development to say, hey, teacher, I'm not feeling too great. My mother just yelled at me in the car on the way to school. So could you give me 15 minutes before you ask me if I have my homework? No, you're going to calmly ask them for their homework, and they're going to blow up at you. And then you're going to have to call the office, and it's going to be a big fuss, all because if we had just kind of taken into consideration, maybe they're, blowing up because something happened. Let me find out. Oh, you got in trouble in the car on your way to school. I understand how that feels. I'll give you some time to cool off, but then I'll come back and we can start over again, and as it pertains to the homework. Something as simple as that. So again, when you're on chapter 7 and you're reading about how children cope with feelings and emotion, go very slowly. And I really want you to kind of erase your mind of what you think and just be open to new information. There's a very important table in chapter 7, table 7-2, selected defense mechanisms used by children. And this is an excellent table because it really gives examples or manifestations of what these look like. So it's less about an example, and it's less about a definition for the defense mechanism as it is a description of the defense mechanism and what are some actions and behaviors that go along with that. This is something that if you plan on being in the classroom, I would honestly tell you to print it out in color and laminate it and keep it by your desk, because I guarantee you will see each and every one of these defense mechanisms, but you just want to be well-versed in how you can address them. And then when we talk about aggression and pro-social behavior, So that goes over into table 7-4, and they talk about the different types of aggression. And so again, it's less about the definition and more about, can you accurately and comfortably come up with some scenarios and some examples that would best go with the different types of aggression that you see in that you may potentially see in your students. And that's it. That is what I want you to focus on when it pertains to chapter 6 and 7. So the study guide will be very useful in helping you kind of narrow your focus as it pertains to the quiz. But if you are someone who you want to work with children, or you're kind of thinking you want to teach either kindergarten to about maybe first or second grade, I would wholeheartedly recommend that you read both of these chapters a couple of times, because you will come to grips with pretty much everything in here. And this will definitely help you feel more prepared and less overwhelmed when you do have some not positive behaviors in the classroom. Okay. We are now going to shift gears, and I'm going to kind of walk us through the week 7 Canvas and talk about some of those videos. Mm-hmm. All right. So in week 7, your learning materials are 4 videos, I'm sorry. So the first video, supporting oral language. There's a section in chapter 6 that talks about oral language development. So this is just a really great video that will allow you to kind of see what that looks like in the pre-K classroom, and what are some different activities that may look like playing, but actually help build oral language. The next video, it talks about, what is developmentally appropriate. Again, this video is going to be extremely important when you get to that piece and you're planning your lesson and you're doing your lesson plan for childhood. So this video is just going to kind of give you some examples of things that you want to incorporate in your lesson. The next video talks about, I believe it's another,
which often saw sort of educators standing back a little bit and observing children, watching children and seeing them naturally sort of engage with materials and learn through that engagement.
So this video is another, it's another video that just kind of talks about the different ways in which children learn, and it focuses on the engagement piece and allowing students to explore. So that's also, that's going to be a really helpful video as you kind of think and conceptualize how you want to do your lesson plan for the childhood stage. And then lastly, there's a video, 7 types of child behaviors that are dangerous to ignore. I wanted to include this video because a lot of times when we think about negative behavior, we think about outward expressions of that behavior. So we think about hitting, we think about pushing, we think about kicking, we think about yelling. But there are also some kind of soft, more subtle behaviors that may not be as in your face, but you definitely want to keep your pulse on that, because those are behaviors that if they continue, they can really turn into something sinister as the kids begin to get older. So that's a really great video too. The 7 types of child behavior that are dangerous to ignore. Then for your discussion board this week, it talks about gender roles and what do they look like in today's climate. And the reason why I included that is because in chapter 7, even though I didn't include any questions on it, they do spend a lot of time talking about self and gender and just what that means. And in today, we in today's society, we do have children at a much younger age that are, they feel confident in saying, oh, you know what, this is what I like. And you know what, I don't really like that. And there's been a lot of pushback. So I definitely want us to kind of think about being objective as possible, just kind of based on the information that you see in chapter 7. And then as you think about how we're changing as a global society, do you feel like gender roles in terms of how they're taught, will it stay the same? Will it grow and different things like that? All right. As it says in the discussion, this is a very touchy subject. So in order for us to be respectful of everyone's different beliefs, whatever opinions you have, please make sure it's backed up with a reputable source. So that includes things like peer-reviewed journals, websites that end in .org, .gov, not .com, because those are usually the websites where it's just, you can have anybody's opinions. And we don't necessarily, want to cite that if it might be hurtful. Okay. So thinking about the midterm. Our midterm opens next week. I'm gonna have it open starting on the 2nd. So that's gonna be Monday. So pretty much Sunday at midnight, the midterm will be open. And the midterm, the due date for the midterm, and this is a hard due date, March 9th, 11:59 p.m. That is also on the page of the midterm. So if you forget this information, it's all on the midterm, don't worry about it. The midterm is worth 100 points total. There will be short answer essay questions. There will be multiple choice, there will be matching, there will be everything. Multiple choice questions will be worth 2 points. Your short answer questions will be worth 3. There is one question that is worth 5. And all of that will equal up to 100 points. Similar to all the quizzes, you will have 2 attempts. The quiz will be open all week long. So the quiz will open Sunday at midnight and it will close March 9th, which is Monday. So basically from Monday to Monday, you have to do the midterm. Now, in terms of when I will lock everything. So week modules 1 through 7 will lock. They will also lock March 9th. So here's the dates. How many questions? No, the midterm is not timed. In terms of questions, I think it's about 50, but it's in that range. And things that you need to have turned in up to that point. So that means your infancy project. If you don't have it done by March 9th, it's a 0. Your childhood lesson plan. If you don't have it done by March 9th, 11:59, it's a 0. If you don't have your quizzes for chapters 1 through 7 done, they will be 0s. So everything will become a 0. And I'm actually going to start doing that a little bit of this week and next week. I'm going to start kind of going in and I'm going to pretty much start from like chapter 1 quiz. So if you have a lot of things outstanding, you're going to be getting a lot of emails from me this week because I'm going to try to catch people now. Because I'm going to try to catch people now because you do still have, like, you have about 2 weeks time to kind of play around with. And so I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that now is kind of getting into that crunch time. So I'm going to go over that again. Your infancy project, if you have not done that by March 9th, 11:59, it will stay a 0. Not a 50, but a 0. The lesson plan for toddlerhood, if you have not done that by March 9th, it will be a 0. All of your quizzes, if you have not done your quizzes, they will also be 0s. So the date that you want to lock onto is March 9th, 11:59 p.m. That's it. The reason why is because I need time to kind of go in and make sure that I'm not in a crunch turning in grades to the university. So telling you now, don't email. I'm going to say no. March 9th, 11:59 is the hard deadline for everything. Yes, I've addressed that. So if you discussion board stuff, yeah, that's discussion boards. If you haven't responded to people that you need to respond, that will be a 0. So like everything that you need to do, use this week and next week to get it done. You don't have to email me. You don't have to ask. If it's outstanding or if it has a grade that you're not happy with, you have until March 9th to do something about it. Now, up to that point, the grade, everything will be locked. And then whatever your grade is in Canvas at that time, that will be your grade that I submit to the university. And I usually kind of send out an announcement to let everybody know that I've gone in and turned in the finalized grades. So March 9th, 11:59, that is the date that you want to latch on to. Have everything done by then. Now, the second piece that will open up during the spring break week. Okay. I always do like a kind of midpoint check-in with I guess like a kind of climate survey so I can get an understanding of how the class is going. If you complete your climate survey, that will be extra credit towards your midterm grade. So if you would like, an additional boost to your midterm grade, go ahead and do that quiz. It's not graded and it's anonymous. So, I definitely want you to be truthful and honest. And on Canvas, it'll just let me know who's taking it. And if you've taken the quiz, I'll go ahead and give you your extra credit. Okay, I know I covered the most important things. March 9th, that's the date that you want to latch on to. March 9th. That's the hard deadline. The hard deadline that I've been talking about this whole time is finally here. March 9th. That's about in 2 weeks. Okay, it is now 7:13. I'm going to hang back if anyone has any specific questions. And if not, you are free to go. I will upload this video and I'll upload this video to Canvas tonight. So if there's anything that you want to review or go back, you'll be able to kind of go back and revisit this video. And speaking of lesson plans, there's a lot of them that still have not been turned in. March 9th, and trust me, you don't want to be trying to do an infancy project and a lesson plan assignment and a midterm in addition to everything else that's going on with your classes. I'm sorry, the midterm will be locked until that date. And that's a university thing. Like we have the quiz says it is locked until Feb 29th. What quiz is that? Yes, it is locked. It's locked until Feb 29th. So it'll open on that date. Now, Alma, what you could do if you want to maybe work ahead on some of the upcoming assignments, because I mean, after spring break, you know, if you have time, that's less, because the assignments throughout the entire semester, those are open. So if you want to start it, if you want to kind of work on those, and then that just leaves, less things to do when we come back from spring break, you can, because those are open and unlocked. Oh, infancy projects. Speaking of that, if you've turned one in, I've graded it. If you have a lower grade and you want to do it again, you can. But like I said, you have up until March 9th. So if you've turned in an infancy project, definitely go in and check your grade, because I have graded everything that's been turned in. I think I've graded it for the infancy projects. I have not begun grading the toddlerhood projects yet. I'm probably going to kind of focus on that this week. For the lesson plan template, all the descriptions for that lesson plan is on the the assignment that you're talking about. There's a detailed description, there's a rubric, and I also included a video. So the only thing that I require is the lesson plan itself. But watch the video, look at the rubric, and make sure that you have a clear understanding of what it is you need to do before you start, because it's not simply just filling out the sections in that template. So, Rocio, I would definitely encourage you to urge you to watch that video so you can get a clear understanding of how to do that assignment correctly. And I believe I discussed the lesson plan. I think that's in week 4, which we should be watching the videos all the way up through. So on the modules, there should be a module that says like every module, there's a separate module that says week 4 video, week 3 video, week 5 video. I wish I could see the student view, because I really do feel like people aren't watching the videos. And I don't know how to make it a clearer way so that you can see when they're uploaded. But yeah, that's a concern if no one knows where the videos are. Okay, it is now 7:20. Thank you all who decided to join me live. For those of you that are going to watch this on your own time, please keep in mind that about the first 20 minutes is just dead silence. So you probably want to start the video going maybe 20 to 30 minutes in, and that's when we kind of start talking. Okay, have a good night.